going. Can you give me your name, the service of your branch, and what your dates of your service were?
Terry Ott, Army. In February of '67 went in, and February of '69 I got out.
Okay. Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I volunteered for the draft, so I was only in for 2 years.
Okay. Why did you join?
Do my duty for the country.
Why did you pick the service/branch you joined?
At the draft board that day, they numbered us off, and I was an Army number.
How old were you?
I just turned 19.
Okay. Do you recall your first day in service?
Well, we took a long train ride down to El Paso, Texas.
Oh.
And then basically, first thing, what did we do first? I probably got haircuts. But that only took about 5 seconds. And everybody's bald as rats. And then they'd hand out, they'd look at you and hand you your clothes. One size fits all, basically. So I got that all out of the way. And then you do some paperwork, and then they give you a test to see if you're smart enough to put your boots on or not, and so on and so forth. And then you head take you to your barracks and introduce your drill sergeant, and then after that was a lot of football practice.
Tell me about your boot camp/training experiences.
A lot of running, a lot of push-ups, agility skills. And we did the monkey bars. I forget how many feet long they were, but you had to be able to do those in so many seconds to pass this, because there's a final physical test to graduate from basic training. And the different agility tests and the monkey bars and the run, I forget how far we ran, and different things like that. Just basically you had to be in real good shape.
Yeah. How did you get through it?
Well, you just do it. If you didn't, the drill sergeant, hey, do more push-ups.
Yeah. What type of work did you perform while in the service?
Well, after basic, they sent me to armor, and I trained in armor recon, and basically went through that. And then at which time I changed my mind on what I was going to go after the recon training, and then they sent me to Washington D.C. and gave me a top secret clearance. I forget what level it was, because of the different places I had to go into and stuff like that. And then over there, I was basically at D.C. was basically assigned to the motor pool, and whatever come up, not mechanics, but if somebody needed a ride somewhere, we'd drive them there. Need the ambulance, we'd drive that. If just whatever was needed, we just kind of did that. So we sat around a lot down here and played cards. But,
What did they teach you in the service?
well, in D.C., a lot of times we'd end up in the Pentagon and places like that where really top secret stuff going on. And if you got into a room for some reason, you had to be there. People usually covering up maps and articles and stuff on desks with whatever they had, coats or whatever, to make sure you didn't see anything you shouldn't be seeing. And then normally when that was done, when we got done with whatever we was doing that day, we'd be called into one of the upper officers' offices, and he would debrief us about what we seen, what we heard, and stuff like that. And it was kind of interesting. There's things that we probably shouldn't have seen at the time, but we were pretty well clued what we can and can't say anything about.
Yeah.
And whatnot. And so it was a pretty tight ship. Arlington Hall, Virginia is the base I was stationed at when I was there. And then from there I went to Vietnam. So.
Where did you serve? Which division, which unit, which ship, etc.? As much detail as possible, please.
Okay, in Vietnam I was in the 313th Battalion, and again, still associated with Motor Pool. I was out of my trained MOS, So as time went on, for them to get me to an E4 rank, they couldn't do it in my MOS I had, so they gave me an MOS. If I remember right, it was a generator repairman. Now, I might have seen a big generator sitting somewhere, but I have never touched one. But that's how I was promoted to E4, which gives you a little extra money. I think we made, with the combat pay, overseas pay, and E4 pay, I think I was making somewhere between $260, $280 a month, something like that.
Did you serve during a war?
With the Vietnam conflict, as it was called.
Yeah.
We were losing 100 kids a day, service members, there for a while. At night, you didn't go to bed right away because about midnight the shelling had started and whatever, land assaults and whatnot in base camp. And usually by 1:30 or 2 that was over, and then most would get to try and get a little bit of sleep and while the others were on duty yet. And by the time the sun came up, it was so hot and humid you couldn't sleep. So we averaged maybe 3 hours a night at the most. And you do that for a year, you just don't sleep well after that. I'm up most nights doing whatever because you just can't sleep. And then there was a lot. We had a mountain range right outside that they like to fire rockets and mortars from at us and whatnot. So they try to eliminate that, but the caves were dug into there. Where they'd find these little holes where they'd crawl out, and they'd go in there. Our rock was coming next to me is rock. Republic of Korea soldiers. They were extremely well trained and extremely deadly. And they went up one time, truckloads were coming back wounded. They were inside those caves fighting. And they said those caves are big enough you could have had a tank battalion with tanks in there. Just natural caves. And then there's outlets went everywhere. And trying to eliminate them, it went on for days and they couldn't do it. And then I don't know, probably some PFC somewhere, maybe from Colorado, what they do over there all the time, smoked or started pouring smoke into these, suggested doing that, pour it into find a hole, fill up full of smoke. When smoke come out the mountain up somewhere, you go blow that hole shut. And they did that for 2 days, and it was coming out the backside of the mountain. And then got all these holes blowed shut. It took about a week or two. It was really quiet until they could start digging out again, and then the stuff started all over again. And that's what you went through. And then they started, I think it was Haiphong Harbor or something, bombing that to stop the flow of arms from the north. And when they started that, it was only about 2 days, and the night assaults ended. They had no ammunition. And it stayed like that as long as they was doing it. Well, the college kids, oh, this poor fish, you're killing the fish, you can't do that. And there was a political war back here, and they talked them into quitting. Well, they quit bombing that harbor, and it didn't even take 2 days, and the night attacks were back on again. I couldn't believe how fast they could get armament through the jungle, mostly on foot, clear down to us again. But they did. Governor, what was his name? Just happened to think of that here some time back. He was a Vietnam veteran, lost his foot over there. That was on the island just off of our base. They were there fighting when he got a grenade and whatnot. But dang, I can't think of his name.
That's all right. Tell me about the chaos of the war. Did you know where you were most of the time? Where was the enemy? Where was your objective? What to do when you found it?
Well, the enemy was pretty much anywhere and everywhere, and you could see them 1 minute waving at you, and then the next minute they had guns out, so you didn't know. Mostly when I was off base, it's usually a convoy or something, and so your biggest deal was snipers, a lot of sniper attacks. We never did run into a major attack on a convoy, which we were lucky. Some of the convoys would totally get wiped out. But I rode in the Jeep, lead Jeep, and whatnot. But spare tire makes a heck of a seat. Yeah, there's some interesting things going on, but basically we were not in a infantry force. We did not go out and search for enemy. We just responded when they found us. Basically, the weapons were used in defense, not offense. So.
Yeah. What did you believe at the time was at stake in the war? What did you think you were fighting for?
Trying to keep communism from spreading around the world, and to look in this country now, it's amazing how much communism is in our government. Actually, everything, it's just unreal. So it's slowed down a while, but it's really gotten bad, and it's unfortunately it's going to get worse here before it gets better. But basically, it's just communism, trying to control that. And help people. The South did not want to be communistic. They wanted to be free, more like us, and we were trying to help them do that, as in North Korea, South Korea, and South Korea wanted to be more like us, not communist, and that's why we still have the 38th parallel and troops on that line and whatnot. And Vietnam, for one reason or another, we're pretty much getting them kind of under control, and that's when they pulled everybody out and sent everybody home. And then it just turned and went the other direction real fast.
No. What you thought you were fighting for?
No, not really.
No. How did you feel about the enemy that you were fighting? How did you feel about them? How do you feel about them now?
I really have no hard feelings. I mean, they were doing what they thought was right. We were doing what we thought was right. What they were told, what we were told. There's a few of them I'd like to be able to visit with a little bit and ask a few questions, but no clue who they were or if they even survived. We had one young Vietnamese boy, I'm trying to remember how old he was. He was about probably your age or just a little older, maybe, probably a little older. But we were kind of training him, mechanics and stuff, and he's helping us out in the motor pool. Called him Hank for short. But I've often wondered whatever became of him, if he survived all this mess, or if he probably got drafted, and what will happen, I don't know.
No. Did you write home often?
Yeah, they had. That's the way we corresponded. We didn't have text or email or any of that stuff in them days. They did have an area where you could go get on a phone line. They had a room set up in little couple cubicles with phones in them. You'd call long distance, kind of pricey, and you couldn't always do it, but I think certain times of days they'd let you do that. I never did do that. I just wrote letters and got letters. In fact, when I went over there, the first letter my folks sent caught up to me about 6 months after I got out of the Army and I was back home going to school. Couldn't believe they didn't give up, though. The Postal Service got it to me. But no, it was just letters. Some of the guys ran around at the high school and different things.
Yeah. Did you ever describe what you were actually experiencing in your letters?
Oh, I may have, probably did. I don't recall. That was 50 years ago.
What reminded you most of home when you were overseas?
But the only thing would be, I always try to make the best out of things. And one day in the motor pool down there, a cook come down. He needed a ride downtown for one reason or another. They wanted to know if somebody could give him, and we're not supposed to do that. They're not supposed to have vehicles because they cook. And so I said, well, what's the odds of us maybe getting some steaks or something once in a while, so we can barbecue? Well, he says, yeah, if you can take me downtown, we'll make sure that happens. I said, well, there's a Jeep, the keys are in it. Just return it when you're done. And we had steaks quite often after that. And we took a 55-gallon drum, cut it in half, made a barbecue pit out of it. And yeah, we ate pretty good there. He did bring homemade bread and stuff like that for us too. So yeah, we did good.
What did you look forward to most when you thought about coming home?
Basically being out of the service, probably.
Yeah.
Probably come and go as you want. A lot of things right in the back of your mind all the time. Yeah, getting to see real people again when you're spend a year in third world company. It was more of a crap hole where we were. To get home and see people again was just amazing.
Yeah.
That's struck me more than anything, how your mind can get twisted around a little bit, and you don't realize it until you get back to the original spot and say, wow, can't believe this. It took about a month to get everything back, get the mind back where it should be. But, probably something else there, but I can't think what it'd be right now.
That's
I
right.
do know when I first come home, I got signed up to go to school over in Hastings, and I stayed with the folks. And I suppose I've been back a couple weeks, driving every day, running around doing this, that, and the other. And I come back one day, hey, so I told the folks, I said, hey, they put a stop sign up down our corner. And they laughed. They said, no, they put that up 6 months to a year ago. So I'd been running that thing many times a day for quite a while there. Luckily, I didn't get caught.
What do you think people today should know about what you went through?
Okay, like at night, shades on windows. A lot of people like to leave them up. It's dark outside. You can't see who's out there, but they can see you. And to this day, I like when it gets dark, I keep the shades down. Life expectancy isn't great over there when somebody can see you, but you can't see them. And that just sticks in your head. And different things like that they just don't go away.
Yeah.
You're constantly on defense. So.
What do we need to remember about your war?
Well, the youth in them days, college kids, were really up in arms against it. It's unreal. They took it out on the soldier, not the government. Get spit at and whatnot. When I got discharged in California, when I got back, they told us don't wear Army clothing, put civilians on to go home. And that was why, because it's just unreal, the disrespect. So that sticks out probably more than anything else. But now as far as back here, there really wasn't much problem in central Nebraska. But then Nebraska is a different, what do you want to say, lifestyle than the rest of the country. I mean, it's just like the flooding. They're helping each other out. So.
Tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences.
The Navy. One night after we was all done with our nightly exercises, things calmed down. Everybody getting back in Iraq, and all of a sudden there's this horrendous explosion like we've never heard before. And the guys were hitting the bunker and getting out there without getting clothes on is one thing, but this time they was forgetting weapons. They should really get there. It was unreal. And then you hear another horrendous explosion, even louder, when the mountain blew up next to us. And the next day, the Navy apologized. They had a Missouri battleship. It was out there, out of sight. We couldn't even see it. But it was about 3 o'clock in the morning. They opened up with them 16-inch cannons of theirs and launching shells over the top of us into the mountain to our, next to us where we had all the enemy problem, which was good. But it was a horrendous. Man, with them things noise. Worse than any incoming rounds I'd ever had. And then they apologized the next day for not letting us know it was going to happen. And if on the base around there, if it wasn't safety plate glass, it broke. The concussion was that bad. And you could literally watch the projectiles going through this overhead from the sun, glint off the sun, from the ship to the mountain. It was unreal. Yeah.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Just the basic. Like I said, I've been protected for some reason. I don't know why. Very well, but just the basic 3 for the Vietnam service.
How did you get promoted?
Most promotions come after so many months or whatever. It's time for promotions, and they got somebody to hand out, and they kind of go by who's doing their job decent and who isn't, and that's how they hand out the promotions.
What was the highest rank you achieved?
E4. I was specialist 4th class. If I'd have had stripes, they'd have called me a corporal. But we had a corporal in our squad already, so I just became a spec 4.
How did you stay in touch with your family?
Just letters.
Yeah. What was the food like there?
When we started barbecuing, it was really good. No, for the most part, they didn't do a bad job. We had a good bunch of cooks, and the one cook was just a clown. He could have been on TV and made a living. And he entertained the troops as we were going through the food line, getting our breakfast or whatever we was getting. He was just finer than Dickens.
Do you feel pressure or stress? Or did you? Sorry.
No, I never really have. For the most part, it's just what's going to come is going to come, and you just deal with it. And one way or another, that's what I've always done. Is just sometimes you say, "Oh, the heck with it! I ain't going to mess with you," and let it go. And the next time you want to work to get what you're wanting there, it just depends on the situation.
Was there something special you did for good luck?
Not really. Just try to get some sleep at night.
How did people entertain themselves?
Well, overseas, there wasn't a lot you could do. So our squad, we usually sit around in the evening playing cards. It might be any kind of cards. It could be poker, could be gin rummy, could be hard to say whatever. About all you could do.
What did you do when on leave?
Well, when I was in the States, I usually just came back home. And when I was overseas, me and a couple of the other guys decided we was going to go to Australia on R&R. And as we got closer, it was quite a bit of money, and I had it, but I'd be pretty broke. And hey, get over here, you got to spend a bunch of money while you're there. Oh, probably ain't that important. So I told them, no, I'm not going to go. You guys go ahead and go. Well, the one kid, Morse, out of California, his uncle or his brother was something to do in government. I can't remember what it was, but he knew the representative. I don't know what grade representative was from Australia, and I didn't know this at the time until they came back and told me. But when they flew into Australia, they were met by a big, long, black limousine. And they picked them two guys up. They took them to this yacht. It was more of a cruise ship size yacht. And they got to stay on board there. They had room suites, and they fed, and anything they wanted they had, no charge. They'd take them around sightseeing. They'd take them around shopping souvenirs, and they wouldn't let them spend any of their money. They bought all the stuff, and they come back and told me this. And I'm thinking, yeah, I'm always doing something stupid. I did that one time too.
Do you recall any particular humorous or unusual events?
Yeah, but probably shouldn't talk about them.
Do you have photographs from your time in the service?
Yeah, I've got some. I don't have a whole bunch.
Yeah, and you can show those a little bit if you want to. Who are the people in the photographs?
Oh, a lot of them are just the people I served with. See if I get that. We got some of them actually wrote the names on the back because at this age, I don't remember. Okay. And this one, you're out tooling down the highway in a convoy, you'd see vehicles like that laying along the roadside that are shot up. And this was from basic training with my gear on. Oh, and here's one with gear on the bunk, and the bunks were really taut. You learned how to make them right, or you just kept remaking them.
Yeah.
And here's some armor training. The 113 vehicles, mini, not tanks, but armored, is what we trained in and what we used for reconnaissance. And here's a little bit of our R&R at the card table in the evening with some of the guys. And we all had we called them a house girl. They're civilian, and they came around and we paid them monthly, and they would keep our boots shined up, do our laundry or bedding. We didn't have to make the beds, they made the beds. It was almost like home there. That was nice, yeah. Actually, it was probably better. I didn't have to make my own bed at home. I mean, there. But, yeah. And here's one, some of the guys, the corporal's the guy without the shirt kneeling down. I'm the guy standing in the back with the Vietnamese boy. That was Hank, we called him. He was, can't recall, well, let's see, he's 16, got it on the back. 16 years old, and we was kind of teaching him mechanics and stuff, so he could work on stuff, have a way to make money in the future. And he was basically just coming free of charge and helping. He just wanted to help so he could learn this stuff. He was quite a nice kid. I've always wondered whatever happened to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, Tommy Lewis was our corporal, so I got E4, which is great with me. That means I got the same pay and I didn't have to worry about nothing.
Did you make any close friendships while you were in the service?
Oh, there was a couple, mostly in Vietnam, but we just kind of lost track. In fact, I only met one guy. It was all just kids out of high school, and Bob Orr out of Grand Island, and he come to our company. He was stationed with us in Vietnam, and we had some tales we could tell too. But I haven't been able to locate him, so I don't know if he made it home or. I've tried several times to figure out whatever happened, but I have not found. I should look for him this week or next week when we're in D.C. I'm kind of excited to see the changing of the guard. All the time I was there, I never did see that. Didn't ever see that. Just being at the Arlington Cemetery and all these other sites, I've been to them all, but
Yeah.
never saw changing of the guard.
Did you ever keep a personal diary?
No, I had a lot of teachers that could attest to I don't like to write.
Do you recall the day your service ended?
Yeah, I was in California, and one of the guys, you know, you get in there and you come in your military gear and you go shower up in this big shower room and get your civilians on, and there was one young black kid in there. He was just hooping and hollering. He couldn't believe he managed to live through that thing. He made it home, and he slipped and cracked his head, and he went into convulsions. And last time I saw him was when they was taking him out to the ambulance. Now, I don't know whatever happened to him, but he was just so excited. It just did not end well.
No. What did you do in the days and weeks afterward?
Well, for a while there, until I was waiting for school to start, so just dinking around, trying to chase down old high school friends and whatnot, which wasn't always probably the best idea, but that's pretty much all I did. A guy by the name of Scott Hadley usually could get you in trouble one way or the other.
Did you work or go to school?
I did both. Went over to Hastings. I could always get a job. I had a part-time job in Washington D.C. pumping gas. I just like to work, like to have something to do, and I've always been able to get work. People say you can't find jobs. There's jobs there. You got to take one, and when you find a better one, move on. But I went to work for Jack Halloran over there on the farm, and did a lot of farming for a couple seasons. while I was going to school there, and then that's where I'd met my wife, and then we ended up getting married, and then she was from Grand Island, and she wanted to move back home, so I needed to get a full-time job and become responsible, and so I quit school, which I wished I wouldn't have, but I did, and went to Grand Island and found a job with Redmond Trailer House Factory. I worked there for maybe 3 months, and I got on at New Holland, which now Case, and they paid a lot better. They had benefits and health insurance. They had all kinds of stuff. And I was there, I suppose I've been there about 6 years or so when the wife decided now she didn't want to live in Grand Island. But she liked Aurora. She thought we had to move back to my hometown. Well, okay. So we moved back to the hometown, and I commuted back and forth for a while, but I got old real fast. But I went down to the phone company one day and put in my application down there, and they liked the fact of my electronic training after the service and stuff like that. So they hired me to work business lines, hospital, courthouse, Bonneville, that kind of stuff. So I was doing that for a while. I gave up New Holland, went to work there. And no, I don't know, a year down the road or so, the wife didn't decide she didn't like being married. So, okay. So I'm single again. And the gals at the phone company didn't think I was good. So every time a single gal called in to have her phone hooked up, they managed to get me the order. So I met a lot of single gals there for a while. In fact, that's how I met your grandmother. One Christmas Eve, I hooked her phone up. And one thing led to another, next thing you know, we were married. And then from there, I worked for a phone company for quite a few years, 10, 11 years. And somehow I've always played with cameras all my life through high school and whatnot. And we'd have some people say, hey, we're getting married, we can't afford a photographer, could you take our pictures? Well, okay, we did. Just give them the film when it's done, they go develop it and whatnot. Well, after we're doing a few weddings like that, we thought, well, wait a minute, maybe we better charge a little bit for our time anyway, so we started putting a fee to it. And then we had a couple kids come up, hey, can you do our senior pictures? And then mothers come, can you take my kids' pictures? And one thing led to another. We had a part-time job out of the house that was, we'd work our jobs through the day and we'd be busy all night. And this wasn't good. So we decided to quit the job downtown, and we went down and opened up a studio on the north side of the square. And we did that for a number of years until I had some health problems. And somehow my wife's 50% of the business become 51% of the business, and she closed the business. People were distressed. Okay, that's how I kind of ended up at the airport, just filling in because we lost our manager out there in a plane accident. And while I was out there, I bumped into a company on the internet and wanted to build Nebraska on an airport, so I got a hold of them. Next thing you know, they put up a corporate hangar. 2 years later, they made me an offer my wife couldn't refuse. So I quit the airport and went to work for them, and I worked there until 16. I was going to try and retire. Well, the airport heard about it, and next thing you know, I'm helping the airport again. So.
Was your education supported by the GI Bill?
When I got out and I went over to Hastings to go to school, yes, I had the GI Bill to help pay for that. Yeah.
Did you take any college classes while you were in the service?
No. And GI Bill, when we moved to Grand Island, then we rented for a little bit, and then found a house, and I bought the house through the GI Bill, which really helped because you didn't need a down payment at that time with the GI Bill.
Did you join a veterans organization?
Yeah, I remember the Legion and the VFW.
Do you attend reunions?
I haven't. I've thought about it a few times, but I just never have. And you know, this would be mostly Nebraska people, and the only Nebraska guy I knew was Bob Orr, and maybe he goes to them. Maybe I should try and go to one once and see if I can't track him down.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
No, you've got some good people in there, and you got some bad people in there. And when you've got good people, officers in charge, your life expectancy is much better than it was if you had a lousy lieutenant taking care of you. So yeah, those things in the service. As far as what I did enjoy was weapons training. I got to fire all kinds of weapons that you just don't get to in civilian life, and so that was kind of fun for me growing up in the country, basically. So.